I thought I could talk about my high school experience a little, in attempts and hopefully to highlight some of the things I struggle with and hopefully help others feel like they're not alone or maybe offer some higher perspectives of why negative things might happen in our life, and also just to kind of talk about my pre-awakening journey and hopefully help you learn a little bit more about my journey and how I eventually got led to spirituality and eventually making YouTube videos and putting myself more out there as someone that is a channeler and intuitive. And this video is actually something I meant to record a couple weeks ago, but when I went to record it, my microphone stopped working. And so I had to borrow a microphone from a friend and then was busy with other things for a couple weeks. And so it's been a little bit, but I'm really excited to record this. And I just hope I can honor my high school experience through this story. And I probably won't be able to touch on everything, um, but I hope that I can, you know, give it the explanation and the story my experience deserves through high school. So let's get started. In my high school experience, there's two kind of like big things that happened in middle school, but kind of like ended up like influencing my high school experience quite a lot. And one was my parents getting a divorce, and the other was me starting essentially a pornography addiction. And with my parents getting a divorce, how we all coped with it as a family is just like pretending like it wasn't, like it didn't happen. And my parents weren't living together, but we never really talked about how we were doing emotionally with the divorce. And we all kind of just pretended like we were fine, which obviously led to the underlying pain from the divorce being taken out in unconscious ways. And my mom started working a lot more, one, to provide for us more since my dad was providing less after the divorce, and two, also a way of avoiding me and my sister, because, and I think in some ways subconsciously reminded her of the failed marriage she didn't really want to face and look at. And my dad became more self-absorbed and also maybe a little bit um greedy, or like always felt as children, and like my mom would be like, ask your dad for money, always felt very uncomfortable asking him for money. And it usually led was most of the time him dragging his toes to provide for us in that way. And my dad also coped with the divorce through pornography. And something you learn about about parenting is the patterns that you have not faced in yourself most of the time are the patterns your children are going to end up picking up. And it's why we need to be discerning about who we date and who we choose to have kids with, because if they're lost in an addiction that we wouldn't choose for ourselves or wouldn't choose for our kids' mirror neurons are going to think how they're coping with life is healthy, and that becomes a much more easy choice for them to make if they have a parent modeling that addictive behavior. And so while I still had choice not to use pornography, it did end up becoming the way I coped with the divorce, and was pretty much lost in a pornography addiction through all of high school, fell in and out of it in college, and also fell back into it a little after college. And it ended up playing a really big influence on my life. And I would say a negative way. And every addiction, while it is an act of self-harm and does kind of and does steal life from you, when you heal the addiction, the gift of it is you have a better boundary around things like looking at, like for me, around looking at like sexual images or casual dating. Like pornography really highlighted to me how toxic that pattern is of using looking for like looking at sexual images through technology, or chasing after sex in casual relationships. And now I'm very proud of the boundaries I have around who I would like allow to share that physical intimacy with. But going through the addiction, what you learn about pornography is it will lower your self-worth and self-esteem, because people that use porn are or people that are porn actors have very little self-worth, self-esteem almost across the board, and they're using their loose sexual boundaries or losing constantly having sex with others as a way of reaffirming that they have value. And even though they deep down feel so unworthy, and it's like value that always ends up slipping through your fingers. It's not value that sticks, it's value that you can't actually receive, because you don't have, you're not being picky enough for that someone choosing to have sex with you really having any deeper meaning, because it's a surface level relationship. And um and so during high school, starting out high school and starting to fall deeper and deeper into pornography, and in middle school, it was something that I realized that, I don't think it's good for me to like look at at like videos of people having sex. And so I started out just like looking at images. But anything you learn about addiction is like, if you keep on reinforcing the pattern, it's almost like a vortex, and it eventually pulls you deeper and deeper. And especially with my parents, a divorce and going through a major loss, it became very easy. It became very easy to kind of, all of a sudden I'm watching pornographic videos and not really knowing how I got to that point, but that being kind of, and then feeling power, and then being at the start, it was kind of like, I was thinking porno, like as a child, like as a 13-year-old, 14-year-old, I was thinking, is pornography good or bad for me? And I wasn't sure. Even though deep down I think I knew on some level it wasn't good for me. And then on another level, like the desire of wanting to be good at sex and thinking pornography would make me better at sex. And really, it just makes you more obsessed with sex and makes you prioritize, like constantly seeking sex over seeking genuine love and connection. And your mind becomes obsessed with thinking about sex. Because it thinks that like there's an idea when I was growing up of, oh, if I think about it, maybe it will happen. And that never actually occurred. The people that I thought about having sex with, I never ended up having sex with. And really, in truth, it was just my way of avoiding the deep levels of unworthiness, aloneness, and hurt I felt from my parents separating. and and with pornography, like I definitely had some guidance of, my like guides and angels being like, hey, maybe make a different choice. And what you learn about life is your guides and angels will let you hit as many potholes as you need to hit to then be inspired to make the choice. They're not, most of the time, they're not going to make the choice for you. They're just going to give you nudges to choose differently. And so that's definitely what happened with me, is like I have clear experiences of like in ninth grade, like with my eye touch, I'd be like going to go use porn, and I would see an angel come and touch my eye touch, like just the energetic outline of an angel. And I would go to then press the safari button and it wouldn't work. And that happened multiple times. And then shortly after that, My mom looked at my browser history on my iTouch and realized that I was using pornography, and was just like, we had a conversation and she was just like, hey, don't use it. It's bad for you. And are if you have a child that is in some type of addictive pattern, just telling them that it's bad for them is not enough. You need to be specific and give them examples of why it's bad for them. Like, honey, don't use pornography because it will make you want to use other people's bodies and not and lose all discernment of who would be right for you to share physical intimacy with, and who would be not good for you to share physical intimacy with. It will crush your self-esteem. You'll lose your self-confidence. You'll think that sex is the only way to connect with others and is the only way to feel valued and appreciated. Your mind will become filled with sexual fantasies that even after you stop using porn will feel like a portal, that you won't even be horny or aroused, and all of a sudden your mind will get lost in sexual fantasies, and you'll come out of it 20 or 30 minutes later asking where the time went. And it will only steal life from you, and it will only steal deeper, more meaningful relationships from you. When you are prioritizing trying to meet sexual needs over trying to care and love for others. And that, and so part of, and I ended up, even after the conversation with my mom, still using pornography. And one of the things I think that actually fed my pornography use is both my parents had a very poor relationship with anger, and their way of handling the anger they felt around the divorce was being emotionally volatile and being passive aggressive towards me and my sister, and constantly having edge in their voice. And I think both my parents kind of like to think they're not like each other, but in a lot of ways they're very similar to each other. And so, and I watch my parents misuse their anger and take their anger out on me and my sister all the time. And it was just verbal, but it still hurt quite a lot. And I, and subconsciously, I was aware enough to realize I did not want to handle my anger that way. And it pushed me into a pornography addiction even more, because that you realize that anger is repressed passion. and and I thought, unconsciously, I was aware that if I had no passion in my body from masturbating a bunch of like 1 to 4 times every day, pretty much, that I would be less likely to take my anger out on others. But in truth, I was really taking the harm that I was afraid to take out on others and taking it out on myself, and taking all the mistreatment I received from my parents out on myself, taking the mistreatment, and also starting in high school, because I was starting to, all of a sudden in high school, I don't know, I think it was part of my parents getting divorced and part of pornography, but I lost all my self-esteem. In middle school, I was like confident public speaking, felt cool as a cucumber in front of others, was friends and acquaintances with many different people and many different friend groups. And in high school, all of that changed. I just talked to my main friend group, and um and and became really terrified to talk to anyone, especially if they were a girl, and lost any ability to public speak. I took a debate, like a speaking class my freshman year, first semester, and would pretty much just go in front of people, go to give a speech and just like shake in front of people and barely get any words out. And real and realizing that my level of my and not honestly, then I had no clue I was like, what happened? Where did all my self-worth and value go? Why am I now all of a sudden so afraid to talk to girls? But just that was how my body was reacting. And I think part of it was my household became a lot less safe just in my parents being verbally passive aggressive pretty much like most days. And going from someone who had a regulated nervous system in middle school and who felt pretty calm and at peace to all of a sudden home no longer feeling safe. And my parents, who were way more present when they were together, my mom started working 6 days a week as a therapist. 4 days a week would be 12-hour days. Friday would be like an 8-hour day, Saturday would be a 6-hour day. And then she would come home and try and clean the house, do 6 different errands, and would spend no time with me or my sister. And it was one, to provide for us, and two, to avoid how she felt about the loss of the divorce. And my dad became someone just a lot more self-absorbed and really wasn't really curious in any deeper level of how me and my sister were doing, but would want to spend time with us because we would remind him of why he had value, as because he took value in being a parent, even if he wasn't really fully stepping into a parental role at that time. And oftentimes it would feel like a burden more to go see him than something that actually was nourishing and supportive. And my dad, we have a relationship now, and it's much better than it was back then. And he's a much better dad now than he was back then. And I understand like the pain of like a losing of a marriage can really freaking hurt. And if we haven't been taught good coping skills by our parents, it can lead us to try and cope through toxicity. It can lead us to try and cope through the toxicity our parents coped through. And he was always doing the best he could. And same with my mom. But it led me to having a high school experience where I was really shut down. And part of that is my own fault or responsibility for dealing with the divorce through pornography and not taking the signs of the universe of, hey, your angels are turning off your eye touch and making it not work because you should not be choosing that. Or the fact that, hey, your mom just had a conversation with you about that because it's the universe trying to nudge you that you're going to have a really shitty experience if you continue to use pornography, and it's going to keep you shut down and lost in unconsciousness of deeply yearning to feel connection with others, but not feeling confident enough or feeling safe enough to actually be able to connect with others. And that was my high school experience of deeply feeling like I needed connection, and then also being so afraid of how obsessed I was with sex that it made me feel unsafe in my body to connect with others, which is a crazy perspective to have. And by 16, realizing, hey, pornography is no longer good for me, but having given so much power away to that that feeling unable to stop and trying to even like stop. I think I like got rid of Safari off my iPhone for a bit, but then would just end up using it on social media apps, using porn on social media apps instead. and and then also becoming rather sluggish and depressed. And my mom eventually realized, because I came home with all C's, and till I got bad grades, she literally, I don't think she really knew anything was wrong, or she did, she didn't talk about it with me. But when she got all C's, when came home with all C's, which was usual for me, I was usually like a B student in high school. She was like, I need to help Luke. And we went and saw a psychiatrist, and he put me on antidepressants. And the antidepressants ended up making me manic because I wasn't really depressed. I just wasn't managing my energy well. Like the question to ask yourself if you're depressed is, how are you managing your energy? Because sometimes we'll feel apathetic and that is part of our experience. But if we're apathetic for months and years on end, it could be some underlying past trauma that's slowly working its way out of our system. Or it could just be, I am not managing my energy well at all. And for me, that was really true in high school of like every day when I would come home, like in the way for me coping of essentially my mom like working a bunch and me never seeing her, my dad becoming more self-absorbed. I really felt like I didn't have parents in high school and I felt so alone. And um, my sister ended up like getting way more into competitive dance after my parents after my parents got a divorce, and I honestly don't think she felt as safe around me because of my pornography use, and would also like just talk on the phone with her friends as a way of coping with, oh, my parents no longer really are around as much. And so I felt like I kind of lost everyone and would be home alone for hours because my sister would be at dance, my mom would be working. And, when I went to my dad's house, he was at least home. But so yeah, I felt incredibly alone. And I would cope with that by watching hours of movies every night, jerking off a couple times, using pornography. And I wouldn't use porn every time I jerked off, but most times I would. And using and thinking and using that as a way of coping with how my parents didn't really feel present, how alone I felt, and all and not knowing what to do about all the lack of safety and insecurity I was feeling, and not knowing what to do with the anger I felt around my parents separating, and not knowing what to do of all the mistreatment I was receiving at school, because something that I seem to be blessed with or cursed with is that people tend to feel very safe in my presence. And it's been like that for my whole life. And, whether I'm just a star seed and come from a higher frequency planet or have lived a couple more lifetimes than other people, it doesn't mean that I'm better than anyone else. And I still have gone through addictions and had a rather hard time with life. It's not like it's made life any more easier. And in truth, during that time, everyone could feel I was this had a safe frequency to breathe around, and wouldn't and I was probably least likely to try and like take out my pain onto them. While I still did that some, like when people would say mean things to me, I'd try and say mean things back, but I didn't I was the safest person, and I also had the least ability, the least level of worth and value to stand up for myself. And so my friend group would take out their anger and aggression on me. The kids at the baseball team, while for freshman and JV, I was good enough to make the baseball team. I was always one of the worst kids on the team, and everyone would tease me about that to the point where like my freshman baseball coach was like concerned about how much shit I was taking. and and I would just come home and take that out on myself through using porn and masturbating. And that was like my high school experience, is just being everyone's punching bag. And even in my friend group, the my a friend I was rather close with before my parents got a divorce, and his parents happened to get a divorce at the same time. And from what I understand, like I think his parents probably coped with not talking about it and not helping him manage his feelings around it either. And so his way of coping was taking all his anger and aggression he felt about the divorce out on the person who was most like him, which was me. And he would always call me stupid and dumb after his parents got a divorce that was not part of our relationship before his parents got a divorce. And I had no clue how to cope with it. And he was someone I cared about and like liked a lot and was like kind of so confused on how to deal with it because I wanted to be feel connected to my friends, but none of my other friends seemed to pay attention to this happening at all. And I and still liking this person, but him taking out all, like, constantly putting me down. And I only knew how to stand up for myself by just giving it back to him, which of course just built a bigger fire. And like, he would call me stupid and I would call him fat because I just was trying to get him to stop. And it would just lead to, and then it would lead to us getting in like physical fights. And like, there's like, I literally got choked unconscious by him one time, and he was someone that was bigger to me than me. So I always lost every physical fight that we were in. And there was like no one there to like help me deal or cope with that. And like, my mom took me to therapists, and like, they never asked deeper questions. They just were like, oh, you have a hard time paying attention in school. We should put you on ADHD medication. And thank God my mom was like, no, he doesn't need that. Because really, I just had a hard time paying attention in school because I felt so unsafe because I was taking so much shit from my parents and from everyone. um, and it's an experience of like literally, but like, when I was 16 and 17, I would like try and find the saddest movies I could watch because like at least it would give me some type of release. Like at least I could feel the sorrow I was feeling from taking, like, just being like mistreated every day pretty much. And not know having feeling like I had anyone to really like share what I was going through with. Like, my sister didn't want to connect with me, my parents weren't around, my friends weren't into deeper conversations really. And it was brutal. It was absolutely brutal. And like, I used to like imagine when I was 16, like if I could just get a girlfriend, like things would get better. And hoping that even though I was scared to talk to any girl and never talk to really anyone outside of my six friends in my from that main friend group in high school, that that if I could just get a girlfriend, then things would change. And in truth, I had to like give myself the care, the nurture, the love I needed in order to feel empowered enough to change on my own. And something I kind of want to maybe wrap up with is like, when we're not facing things in our life and the universe needs us to start facing those things, the universe is going to start giving you negative experiences as a way of trying to like kick you awake or kick you to making a change in your life. And I've heard someone else talk about it as like the universe giving you a kicker. And so I'd like to just like talk about some of the kickers I received in high school because I hope it's helpful in some way. And like, the first one I want to talk about is like, and it's kind of the first one I really received, is like when I was 17. Um, and 17, like over the summer, like I would watch movies and play video games. Like that was one of my main coping mechanisms. And by that time, like really starting to become aware of, I don't think I want to play video games in college. Like I don't, and wanting to be like, can I play less video games and start to prioritize and prioritize making new friends. Because it's like something at 17 is like, I should like start putting myself out there more and not just be connected to this main friend group. Was the thought process of like, there's 2,000 kids in my high school, over 2,000. Like I should put myself out there a little bit more. And I don't think video games was really helping me do that. And so it's trying to stand with, I'm not going to buy any new video games, and I'm going to try and put myself out there more my junior year. And uh and I did pretty and then this new video game came out called Destiny and it looked really cool. And I was like, I'm not gonna buy that video game. I'm just gonna I'm just gonna, you know, like continue to move forward of trying to play a little less video games and make new friends. And after like 2 months of sitting with it, and it felt like a fire was like burning in my body, not buying this video game. And eventually, one day, coming home from the chiropractor, I was like, I'm just gonna get this video game. I'm just gonna buy it. It's probably not that big of a deal. And so I go and buy Destiny, and I'm driving home, and I'm almost home, and I have this thought of I'm going to take a different way home than I ever take. And this different way home led me to having to jump across like a busy intersection toward into my neighborhood during rush hour. And there was cars going kind of like this way, and then there was cars, I don't know if you can see it, there was cars going this way, and then there's cars going kind of out and turning in. And I was I was coming, there was cars stopped at the light, and I was pulling in front in between two cars and was just trying to jump into my neighborhood. And I can't see the cars coming this way. And I go to jump across because I think I have enough time, and I think like I'll be able to miss the cars turning in, and I end up just boning someone literally on the way home from buying that video game. And I really believe, and on the way home, like literally feeling the energy around my head shift, and then thinking I'm going to take a different way home than I ever take. And I think it was my guides or higher ET beings that walk with me, literally like facilitating a car accident to be like wrong direction, right? No, you need to sit with your addiction to video games, and the invitation of playing less video games and making new friends was us trying to guide you to having a better junior and senior year experience. And it did make me play that video game a little less. And eventually I ended up, before I went to college, I like stopped playing, like going into college, I essentially stopped playing video games. Um, and I guess that's something to be proud of, but buying that video game, I did end up playing that video game more so than I probably would have hoped, even after the car accident, and really not making any new friends. And then like 2 months later, I was in a group chat with my main friend group, and I finally like had enough of my one friend whose parents were also divorced, like all the shit I had taken from him. And I said in this group chat, like, you've been a dick to me ever since your parents got a divorce. And and um and then I think I said something along the lines of like, you're fat and I hate you, or something along, or like, you're fat a couple of times. I don't know. And my whole friends took me being honest of you've been a dick to me ever since your parents got a divorce, I guess, as like me trying to make him, like trying to hurt him for his, like hurt him through his parents being divorced. But in truth that was just my honest experience. But they ended up, because I said that, they ended up all unfriending me. And I think, and that was like kind of the next kicker of like, hey, you should like really invest in different friends, because these friends honestly aren't even really treating you that well. And the crazy thing is like looking back at, even like it's something I haven't even realized till like doing this talk of like, oh, like they were trying to prepare me of like helping me make new friends, so that transition of losing my friends would have gone been easier. And I honestly believe that that friend group unfriended me because I was finally honest about my experience. And the moment I was honest my experience was the moment like of us severing our soul contract with each other. And and honestly honestly led me to being less mistreated. But instead of me making new friends, I just spent the last 2 years of high school by myself. And I literally didn't know who else to sit with at lunch. And so like I would still sit with my old friend group, even, and they would be even less nice to me now that they were, and like they were overall good guys. And like most of it was like teasing, some of it was like probably a little bit more mean, but like, and I probably tried to give it back to him too. I don't like it to all be one-sided or like, oh, this friend group was awful. That's not the case. You know, I really loved and cared about these people, but they were definitely mistreating me probably a little bit more than the other friends in the group. Um, and uh, it was really time for me to move beyond that experience once I could be fully honest with about my experience. And uh and also like as soon as I unfriended them, or like shortly after, like they went from being like kind of like one of the last sober friend groups to being like getting like really into like weed and like other psychedelics. And then something like I hung out with them once like in between like freshman and sophomore summer, and realizing, oh, they got really into drugs. And if I had any added pressure on top of all the pressure I was already received, like if I had any more addictions, any was mistreating myself any more than I already was, life would have been so much harder. And so, honestly, looking back, feeling really grateful that they did unfriend me, because I don't know if I would have like made it through high school if I was using drugs on top of everything else I was facing. Oh God. And yeah, and and there's like A and B lunch where I would just like sit with them for lunch, and then C lunch was like on Fridays, and people would eat in classrooms. They wouldn't go to the cafeteria, and that my friends, my ex-friend group would never tell me where they were eating lunch, so I would like eat lunch in my car, which sounds really sad, and it kind of was sad, but anyways, and yeah, and eventually, okay, and then just to talk about the last kind of like major thing that happened is like when I was a senior, starting to feel like I was really ready to move beyond pornography. Like 16, realizing it was bad, didn't feel like I had any power to move beyond it. 18, being like, hey, I think I really need to start moving beyond this. And and I and I but still like struggling to stop. And what ended up actually allowing me to stop pornography and like help me find my way out of it, it didn't fully solve it, but helped me stop using for a period of time, was I was working at this swim school when I was 18 and uh, in 17, and they were threatening to fire me. And at the swim school, like you would be in the pool for like 4 hours teaching kids swim lessons, and the chlorine would take out all the oil off your skin. And the swim school was threatening to fire me, and of and the swim school is threatening to fire me, and like feeling all this pressure of like I honestly wanted to quit my job, but my mom told me you can't quit. And so I was like, I guess I can't quit. And they're threatening to fire me, and I go home one day feeling all this pressure of like they're threatening to fire me, and like my mom saying I can't lose this job even though it really wasn't that big of a deal. And like my only coping mechanism at the time, or any way to deal with stress, was to masturbate. And I go to masturbate, and because my skin is so dry after working there, I end up getting a friction burn on my penis. And then it kind of became like, oh shit, I actually have to rest my penis, and like can't really jerk off for like for a couple weeks, and it's my only coping mechanism. And the idea of like, oh, pornography is going to make me good at sex kind of vanished, because I was like, well, I can't even masturbate right now. And it was like actually what led what helped me find, like, the idea of using pornography after that just kind of vanished, and I still had a really hard time not masturbating. It took forever to heal because of that, but it did kind of lead me. And so the thing you learn is, like, if I have addictions and I'm not facing it, the universe is just going to give me either events or continue to put more and more pressure on me until I have no other choice but to face the choices that the universe is trying to move me towards. And and I even think I was like warned that like something like that could happen, because like a year earlier I got poison ivy on my penis, and I had the thought, like, if you don't face your pornography addiction, we are going to take this away from you for for a bit. And then not listening to that and then having that negative event happen, and like having to deal with all of that. And literally the next time I went back to, like, that happened, and then I went to work the next day at the swim school, and they fired me like on the spot. And it was like, which, like, probably was helpful in helping that area of my body heal. And also it was probably like, it was like time for me to leave anyways. So I hope that, like, highlights, some of the, like, awakening journey, talk, like, hopefully honors a little bit the journey I've been on, and that even if we think we're like a high vibe person, or people feel safe in our presence, doesn't mean you're going to have an easier road. And if you fall off the road of consciousness, you're going to probably even have a much harder road, because consciousness is going to pull you back. uh, um, and I'm just like, hopefully this like highlights, like, I'm just like everyone else, and even though and just because I know a little bit about spirituality, and can explain things maybe on a deeper psychological lens than other people, doesn't make me better or superior. And I'm very much on this healing journey just like everyone else, and I very much have had struggles just like anyone else. And high school, for in a lot of ways, was brutal, and it was like something where I just felt deep sadness all the time, and had no clue why. And no one really took interest of what might really be going on with Luke, even the therapists that I went and saw. And so I hope this helps in some way. Thank you for listening and watching, and I love you all. Bye.